van onze hemel, uit die diepte van ons ziel. Voor ons eeuwige gebergtes, waar die krasse antwoord geeft. Sounds the call to come together, and united we shall stand. Let us live and strive for freedom in South Africa, our land.
Thank you very much. I wish to acknowledge all of you who are present today. My name is Kinetso Mosenugi, and I get to know Moradisi wa lenane la gompieno. I ke tse tshone ke tlhompe tonakgolo ya rona, tonakgolo Mokgosi, Kagiso Lazarus Mokgosi, ke tlhompe le bakhuduthamaga ba ba mo potileng, mokhuduthamaga Dantshi wa social development, mokhuduthamaga Mogweng wa community safety, le mokhuduthamaga Lehare wa tsa health in the province. A ke tlhompe gape le majoro mogolo wa rona wa Sedika Sangaka Modiri Molema, le Kgosi Montshiwa ga mmogo le kabinete ya gagwe. Ke tlhompe baeteledipele batsamaisi ba rona ba mafapha le ditheo tse di farologaneng tsa puso, kgotsa batsamaisi ba masepale ba ileng gore ba teng ka kwano, le komiti ya rona e eteletsweng pele go advise tonakgolo ya rona ka tsa moruo mo provinceng ya rona. Ke le amogetse le lona batho ba rona ba ba tlhompegileng ba miti ya gompieno, ga le tlile ka kwano le batsamaisi ba ba farologaneng go tswa ko ditheong tse di farologaneng. Ke a bona go na le di-CEO tsa di-entity le lona la amogetswe. Ke tlo go kopa majoro wa rona wa Sedika Sangaka Modiri Molema gore a tlo gore amogela le go bula tirelo ya rona. Majoro Khumalo Molefe.
Thank you very much. Good morning. The Premier of the Northwest, Your Excellency Tonakgolo Kagiso Lazarus Mokgosi, members of the Executive Council in your respective portfolios, the Director General, and all other heads of departments and accounting officers, Professor Theo Venter and your team, Kgosi Montshiwa, and the House of Khoisan and traditional leadership here present, all our guests and dignitaries, fellow South Africans and the people of the Northwest. My name is Khumalo Molefe. I am the Provincial Chairperson of the South African Local Government Association, SALGA, and therefore I speak deliberately today as we grow, that a journey that was planned to take 40 years, 40 days, took 40 years, deliberately, because there was a development strategy, because there was vision. A strategy in itself remains a strategy if it doesn't have visionary and decisive leadership. So in its totality and entirety, a strategy relies largely on its leadership. and to the leadership that is here. And I'm mindful of the fact that we already feel the spirit of Easter amongst us. And I want to say, because I argue that the strategy will rely on visionary and decisive leadership, I want to say to the leadership collective that is here that we are commanded to be courageous and strong. That Tunakgolo, you are directed to be ready now, you and all the people of the province, to cross the Jordan River into the land that has been given and promised to you. That you have given all the people in this province to the promised land that you will be marching to. And rest assured, no one will be able to defeat you as long as you live. God says, I will be with you as I was with Moses. I'll always be with you. I'll never abandon you. Be determined and confident, for you will be the leader of these people as they occupy this land. With these words, I want to welcome you to the district municipality named after Dr. Silas Mudiri Mulema. Himself, like Moses and Joshua, were freedom fighters. Dr. Mudiri Mulema was an outstanding medical doctor who was conscientized, who never abandoned the cause of freedom, who had the choice to bask in the luxury of his medical and academic prowess, but he chose not to, and instead chose to serve his people and to serve them well medically. But not only did he successfully choose to serve his people well medically, he also never abandoned the cause of freedom. Nobody said the road is going to be easy, Premier. I want to command you, Premier, when you have time, read the book of Numbers, Kings and Exodus. Pay special attention to why did God punish Miriam and not Joshua. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ngaka Mudiri Mulema. The future is not looking bright. The future is bright. Thank you very much.
Galeboga majoro mogolo wa rona, at least today o re zamile nyana wes o ka re wa utlwa thupanyana e tsesane re tla be re go betsa ka yona ga go leboga majoro. A ke itse task e o e tona thata tona kgolo ya go ba le dibuka tse tharo tse. Numbers, it has almost 30 chapters or so. Imagine, and Exodus. Gape it's a journey of the Israelite. So it's going to be a very long read. But anyway, it's important that we also take counsel from the book of life, because there are lessons to be learned as Moses led the people of Israel out of Egypt into the promised land. Program you can see it's not that long. I'm going to now request the Premier of the province, Ntate Lazarus Mokgotsi, to come to the podium and address us. He will highlight also the significance of this important occasion over and above key issues that he will highlight to us. Tonakgolo Lazarus Mokgotsi, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Can we get seated? Program Director, MEC Nora Kinetswe Mosenuri. Also members of the Executive Council present here today. Me Basetsana Danji, MEC responsible for social development, MEC Vessels Morweng, MEC responsible for transport and community safety, MEC Sello Lehari, responsible for health in the province. You are appreciated and welcome to be present today. The chairperson of Salga, who is also the executive mayor of Ngaka Mudiri Molema, Majoro Kumalo Molefe, all mayors and executive mayors here present today. I've seen the mayor of Kagisano Molopo, Re Dipikwe. I've also seen the mayor of Moses Kotane, Memankotwe, Ra leboga for your presence today. Khosi Jeff Muntsiwa, le committee ya gago ra go leboga mongwa mmo go nna le rona mo tsatsing la gompieno. The Director General of the province, Ntate Mosweu Mogotle, ditlhogo tsa mahapa tsotlhe tse di leng teng today, the members of the Economic Investment Advisory Council present here today, representatives of business, labor, and civil society organizations, Professor Fenter and Mr. Tlaletse, leaders of faith-based organizations, our heads of departments and senior management in government, including our CEOs, municipal managers, you are also welcomed and appreciated. The Northwest House of Traditional and Khoisan leaders present here today, members of the media, le bagaetsho ba Northwest, ra le lebogisa ra leboga gore le na le rona mo tsatsing la gompieno. Program Director Majoro o re amogetse mo Ngaka Mudiri Molema a re naya tiro ya go bala Kings and Exodus. Re tla dira jalo Majoro go leka go atimelana le Ramasedi le go leka gore re kope gore a ntshe letsogo a le ne baagi ba province a re segofatse. Today we mark the official launch of the Provincial Growth and Development Strategy, which is primarily aimed at building an economy that can restore and boost investor confidence, accelerate growth, and create jobs. The approval and implementation of this strategy, when he said, and I quote, when he said, and I quote, people-centered and serve as the pathway to the people-centered and serve as the pathway to the future we want for all. It must offer a framework to generate economic growth, achieve social justice, exercise environmental stewardship, and strengthen governance, unquote. Therefore, the consolidation of this strategy was founded on a similar understanding centered on a principle of inclusivity following an extensive consultation process which involved different stakeholders and in particular business, labor, civil society, and traditional leadership. This approach created an opportunity for the plurality and diversity of the voices of residents of the Northwest to be heard and their inputs factored into practical programs that will improve their livelihoods. Central to this initiative is to put emphasis on a collaborative developmental compact between all spheres of government and in particular local government. Municipality, our Provincial Growth Development Strategy, is unequivocal in its support towards municipalities to restore their administrative functionality, beneficiation, industrialization, and tourism. The revitalization of mining towns, particularly in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda district, will find expression through agro-processing hubs, innovation, and skills development linked to digital economy opportunities. With regard to Ngaka Mudiri Molema and Dr. Ruth Sukhomotsi Mompati districts, our priorities will include agricultural expansion and rural development, cross-border trade opportunities, and infrastructure development to unlock economic corridors. In seeing to the full realization of these ambitious plans, support from business, organized labor, and civil society has been canvassed to assume differentiated yet complementary responsibilities to advance the objectives of the National Development Plan as encapsulated in the Medium-Term Development Plan 2024 to 2029. In this regard, achieving inclusive growth through job creation, reducing poverty and high cost of living, as well as building an ethical and developmental state, will be carried out under the auspices of the PGDS. Since its adoption last year, we are beginning to witness a promising economic trajectory, which has culminated in the reduction of the official unemployment rate by 6.1%. This steady decline gives credence to our intervention measures in the economy, where job creation and fighting poverty remain our ongoing apex priority. These efforts will be boosted by an allocation over 5 billion rand towards road infrastructure projects in the province over the medium-term expenditure framework. We are not oblivious to the fact that our province, by its very location, is predominantly rural, with an extensive road infrastructure network that connects major towns, tourism destinations, and smaller economic and business centers across the province. This network is equally a strategic asset, not only for the Northwest, but also for neighboring provinces, such as the Northern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo, to reincarnate economic activities in the country. Importantly, the province serves as a critical corridor to neighboring countries, including Botswana and Namibia, thereby positioning it as a key gateway for regional trade and economic integration within the Southern African Development Community. In recognition of this, the province has prioritized the development of major transport corridors that strengthen connectivity with Gauteng, the economic hub of South Africa. As part of this drive, the provincial government, through the Department of Public Works and Roads, is nearing completion of rehabilitation of the Pelindaba Road project, valued at over 637 million rand. This strategic route enhances linkage between Lanseria International Airport, key industrial hubs in Gauteng, and major tourism nodes such as Hartbeespoort, Mogwase, and Sun City in the Bojanala district. In addition, the province is finalizing a 301 million investment road between Wolmaranstad and Wesselsbron, which strengthen connectivity between the Dr. Kenneth Kaunda district and the Free State province, thereby improving mobility and supporting interprovincial trade. We have also concluded the procurement process for the rehabilitation and upgrading of a road stretching from Magaliesberg through Koster into the Ngaka district. This project will provide an alternative, more cost-effective route for both residents and cross-border traffic, reducing reliance on the N4 toll road. Furthermore, 2 other contracts over 300 million have been awarded for the development of a road between Mahikeng and the Bray town. This project forms part of a broader strategy to unlock the economic potential of the province by enhancing access from Dr. Ruth Khumutsi Mompati district, Botswana, and Greater Mahikeng area, supporting the development of GD Muntsiwa International Airport as a catalyst for the development of a cargo hub in the provincial capital. Program Director, the construction and rehabilitation of these roads will surely have a positive spillover effect in the tertiary industries such as agriculture and tourism. Our vision for a united and transformed agricultural sector for inclusive growth remains the cornerstone of the Northwest Province, with its mission to ensure that we have sustainable food security, socio-economic growth, and transformation of the agricultural sector through research and technology development. Our province projects a better future for rural communities within this sector. This includes household food security initiatives, which are primarily aimed towards reducing vulnerability status by at least 5% each year through start-up packages for household and subsistence farmers over the 5-year period. We have already, Program Director, initiated a provincial agri-hub in collaboration with the Northwest University to boost our food security initiatives as well as sustainable commercial activities through research and innovation. The agri-hub model seeks to strengthen existing ones and create new partnerships with all 3 spheres of government, the private sector and the civil society. 4 agri-hubs have been identified for the Northwest Province and will assist in achieving this economic growth. This program will also enhance agricultural value chains through development support, technology, as well as capacity building and market access for emerging farmers. This initiative will also be reinforced by the completion of the refurbishment of our 50,000 tons of grain storage facility in Springbok Pan. This facility is expected to strengthen grain storage facility capacity to support our food security initiatives, upskill emerging farmers, and create more jobs for our people. This project remains central to the economic value chain of maize production through the resuscitation of the maize triangle back to full production. We will also increase our footprint in the citrus and potato markets by scaling production in these commodities. We need every piece of farmland back into full-scale production. And we can only win if we work with both traditional leaders in our rural areas and commercial farming communities within the province. We have also stepped up efforts to transform goat farming in the province. The program has transformative role in reshaping the goat farming sector and bolstering rural livelihoods by formalizing the sector and increasing its commercial value. We are convinced that the conducive weather conditions and the Kalahari terrain that our province offer makes it possible for the goat massification program to thrive. This program direct, will also ensure that goat farmers in the province not only participate but lead in the agricultural economy, thus positioning the province as a benchmark for goat farming excellence. The Northwest University and the Agricultural Research Council will provide technical expertise, research support, and scientific guidance throughout this program. We have also identified commodity structures of established commercial farmers to help ensure development of the emerging black commercial agricultural sector. The Taung Irrigation Scheme program direction is one of the most important rural development investment strategies that has been identified as a flagship program to achieve the aforementioned. With an estimated budget of 1.5 billion for the upgrading of the scheme, 11 projects will be initiated to boost infrastructure and create various economic opportunities for local people. It must be emphasized that although PGDS is a government-led policy document, its implementation will be a joint effort that will entail a multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder approach to leverage scarce and critical resources to support public sector efforts. This wide-ranging contribution by key stakeholders, including the private sector, civil society, and communities, will also strengthen the relationship between government and communities around local issues critical for development and growth to reduce poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Program Director Lebagaitsu, the commercialization of our provincial nature reserves will emulate the aforementioned model. To date, we have been able to attract investment commitments of over 420 million, where investors have provided bank guarantees and proof of financial capacity. The model will encapsulate lease agreements and equity participation, where host communities and traditional authorities will benefit through lease income, equity participation, job creation, and enterprise opportunities. This program will improve sustainability of the reserves and contribute to economic growth. The geolocation of the Pilanesberg International Airport, which will be jointly resuscitated by the Provincial Government and Infrastructure South Africa, will further boost tourism around the Bojanala region, where majority of these nature reserves are located. At this critical juncture, the Northwest Province commits, through the Provincial Growth and Development Strategy, a transformative economic development agenda that will leverage on investment in technology and human capital. This will also unlock sectoral potential attract strategic partnerships, and deliver measurable socio-economic impact for all communities. To this end, the following key focus areas are targeted as a vehicle to deliver on a number of our strategic objectives. As it relates to water and sanitation, 5 billion rand has been set aside for the construction of 11 water projects, which are at various stages of completion. And also an additional 13 billion rand will be committed for the 27 water projects to address both the social and economic needs of the province in the next 5 years. As it relates to renewable energy and power generation, our province is estimated to have capacity to connect up to 3.7 gigawatts of new electricity generation onto Eskom transmission grid. Furthermore, the Northwest Province is endowed with very good solar resources, resulting in 2 of the 11 envisaged renewable energy development zones being located in the province at Vryburg and Matlosana. The full development of the solar PV potential is estimated to attract up to 50 billion in new capital investment into the province, which will include 5 utility-scale independent power producers that are expected to come on stream in the next 5 years. As it relates to Bojanala Special Economic Zone, as an instrument that fosters and deepens economic and reindustrialization in the Bojanala Platinum District, the SEZ has the potential to create 12,000 jobs. The 40 million rand has been set aside by the provincial government for investment in the bulk infrastructure to kickstart the project as explained by Honorable MEC Mosenugi during the provincial budget speech. As it relates to acceleration of the digital transformation across all sectors, we will integrate advanced digital technologies into agriculture, manufacturing services, and logistics, ensuring that every sector leverages innovation into increased productivity, competitiveness, and global market readiness. The Digital Economy Program Director, which will be fostered through catalytic broadband connectivity, will promote and attract domestic and foreign investment, and promote ease of doing business, connect marginal communities, stimulate local economies and township economic development, and youth and women empowerment. By prioritizing skills development, entrepreneurship, and access to capital for youth and women, the province positions these groups as central drivers of inclusive economic growth and job creation. As it relates to green and sustainable growth, all initiatives will align with the national and the provincial sustainability goals, promoting environmentally responsible practices, renewable energy adoption, and climate-conscious industrialization. Through the implementation of these priorities, we shall ensure that development is not abstract but local, visible, and inclusive. As I conclude, Program Director, the Office of the Premier will be seized with the responsibility of coordinating the implementation of the PGDS to ensure that all our intended objectives yield the desired outcomes. To achieve this, we will strengthen the implementation plan through district-based delivery model, public-private partnerships, clear performance targets across all departments, as well as quarterly public reporting and accountability. Let's build Northwest Province that works for all. I thank you.
Mafoko a sebui segolo ha a tolokiwe. Some of the program directors are motho a fetsa go bua, they again want to elaborate. When the person was just on the podium and spoke. But I think, Premier, you've said a mouthful to articulate the content of the PGDS and the plans of the provincial government. That we are now intentional in our approach, and there's a clear roadmap on key deliverables that we must undertake. I'm going to then request Ntate Venter and Ntate Tlaletsi they know who comes first, and one can come after the other without me calling the other. So I'm going to call them to the podium to give us an overview of the Provincial Growth and Development Strategy. Ntate Venter.
Thank you. There we are. Program Director, Premier, it is a privilege to be invited to present you with a product that we have generated over a period of more than 2 years. I must congratulate you by your presentation. You've addressed some of the issues that I will briefly touch on. But before I do that, I must make a kind of a declaration. I'm still involved at the Northwest University in the position of Professor of Practice, which is kind of, if you know the game of rugby, it's kind of a a try that you get towards the end of your life, oorstoot 3 in beseringstyd. But in any case, so I'm carrying with me a message of goodwill from Professor Bismarck Jobeka from the university. I heard you made mention of the university and the MOU. We're very proud to be in that context. But I must also, Premier, with your permission, provide some acknowledgement right at the start. I must acknowledge the work done by DG Mogotle throughout the process. I must acknowledge the work of DDG Mawelela that was hands-on on the project right through. I must acknowledge the work of Dr. Kenneth Lesedi that also gave us the kind of administrative support and guidance right through the project. And I must acknowledge the members of the expert group. The expert group, I will show you briefly in the 3rd or the 4th slide, moved over time, but eventually we ended up putting the document together. And I acknowledge Mr. A.B. Tlaletsi that served really as my deputy during the project. And he presented the final closeout report this time last year when I was on a study tour to New Zealand and to Australia. So thank you very much for that, A.B. And I must also say that this project, because it was a multi-year project and it covered 2 administrations, the current administration and the previous administration. We were privileged that towards the end of the first phase, already one of our recommendations were implemented, and that is the Economic and Investment Advisory Council that is already functioning, which was part of our recommendation. So there was an interactive process right through the issue. The only area where we feel towards the end of this project that we could have done more, but time is also something that one has to manage, and that is the PGDS group always felt, that we should have made time to visit each and every local government, at least for a day, hear them out, listen to their issues, because when you take a provincial view on things, like we've just heard from the Premier, you look at the province as a whole. But if you start looking at specific areas, you realize that they need specific attention for that area. That is, in the future, something that may be considered, and I also think the lack of intense discussion with tribal authorities is also an area that we wish in the future can be managed better than we did. Briefly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to keep you too busy with these issues, because I'm presenting to you a document that we finished about a year ago, and then the document went, of course, into editing and cleaning up and all those kind of things. And as I prepared last night, hopefully for the last time to present this, I just thought about 7 or 8 things that I must bring to your attention. If you develop a strategic document like the PGDS is, and you start implementing it, you must, and that is the field that I'm teaching at the business school, you must build in a flexible response to your strategic plan, because your strategic plan can never be cast in iron, because things are happening and developing besides what you've done. Since we've completed the job, I just mentioned these few things before I start. Firstly, we had the introduction of the Trump administration, which we did not foresee. So that is globally a headache. The economy has developed green shoots. There are some good news in the economy at areas where we did not see it in our planning. Very important issue. The food and mouth crisis in agriculture, very similar to COVID in its impact. And I will never forget that the shadow of COVID hang over this project, because this project was getting out of COVID. I think food and mouth does exactly the same to agriculture. Water issues, and I'm so glad the Premier addressed several of these projects. But climate change and water issues is something that I think intensified since we have done our work. The crisis in SAPS, although it's not a provincial issue as such, I think it adds to and it links up with crime and the human security that we are looking at. And then, of course, the forthcoming local government election that changes things and that may change things, because we did this project at a very historic period, 30 years into the democratic project since 1994. So what I am presenting to you, firstly, is I'm going to give an outline of the PGDS, but I'm not going into too much detail. In a sense, the Premier gave you responses to what I'm going to say. So I anticipated that I'm going to show you the basic elements and what it was that we are going to do. I'm going to show you how these things linked to the NDP and the MTDP, and how this is the importance of linking these issues to existing national projects is very important. And then towards the end, the monitoring and evaluation framework and where it sits. So the PGDS was approved in May 2025, and what I'm presenting you today is really a version of the final project, and also an indication of how this will go forward. We had an insight that the PGDS, and I must just share this with you, this was the first time that province embarked on an experiment, and that is to provide the PGDS to an expert group that is not government officials. None of us were government officials. We were taken from all walks of life. We had economists among us. I'm from the university. We had people in the private sector, and we had several very good players in the field. And I would encourage that in future, that if you do something like this and you want strategic clarity, bring in the outside and link it up with what you have on the inside. Now, briefly, our project started originally as 3 projects. There was a project called the Mega Project Expert Panel, there was the PGDS Expert Panel, and there was the SOE Assessment Panel. And then in 23, 24, we integrated the panel. It then existed of 14 members, and we had 3 teams within that panel. A team working on mega infrastructure projects, a team working on the PGDS, where we had to integrate the mega projects, and the team working on SOEs that we had to integrate. So in the end, the green line reached the deadline of 30 March 2025. So that is a broad outline of how this project go over time without going too much into process, because that is history now, but it's a very important history, because the PGDS, and the Premier said it, is a living document. It must be reviewed from time to time. It cannot be, what we found when we started with the PGDS, the first successful PGDS was done in this province around about 2011, 2012. And then there was a kind of a lag, and then in 2014, 2015, there was some action again, and then again in 2020, 2021, and then us. I think it must be more regular, and it must be built into the Office of the Premier, which of course is the recommendations that was accepted. What we wanted to do was to follow the targets that are set out by the NDP, which of course is aligned with the MTDP, and that was to reduce unemployment, plans to do that, to reduce the proportion of people living below the food poverty line, and to reduce the or inequality as measured by the Gini coefficient, which currently stands at 0.69, and we are working towards a 0.60. Now, these numbers may sound very close to each other, but it is significantly apart, because the Gini coefficient works not only on a linear project, but it is exponentially bigger and smaller, and that is what we need to try. To do that, we have divided the PGDS into 14 chapters, and I'm going to give a short slide about each chapter, and that is the chapters you see there. So we tried to follow the template or the project as it developed over time, and see if we can reassess the chapters and see if we can bring in some renewal into the chapters. So what follows now is some brief references in each chapter, and these are only the things that I think is noteworthy. You must remember the PGDS is a document. It's about 200 pages. It is now being proofread, and it will be publicly available. I would encourage everyone in province that is at the higher level of management to read through that document. And by reading through the document, pick up the issues that you think we have missed or that we haven't described correctly. Make a note of it, because there will be a second and a third version over time, depending on how provincial government, how the Office of the Premier is going to manage this process going forward. Chapter 1 was all about the NDP and the Northwest Government. In this chapter, we very closely looked at the state and the status of local government in the Northwest Province, apart from all the other issues. But we also contextualized the province in terms of the United Nations Agenda 2030, and we looked at the African Union Agenda 2063, and of course our national vision as it is depicted in the with the Government of National Unity's medium-term development plan. And what I'm going to show you in the next slide is exactly that. If you look at the middle of the slide, you will see the 3 strategic priorities of the MTDP. Inclusive growth and job creation. Strategic priority number 2, reduce poverty and tackle the high cost of living. And strategic priority 3, a capable, ethical, and developmental state. On the side, you'll see where in the NDP are the references to these 3 strategic directions of the Government of National Unity. And in the column on my right side, your left side, you will see where you'll find the same references in the PGDS. And this is to show you that the PGDS looked at these documents very clearly and tried to integrate it into the PGDS so as not to develop something that stands apart from existing documents. This is an example in Chapter 2 of the demographic perspective of the province. And you'll see that there are several things in the province that are worrisome. Issues such as youth unemployment. We have a province that export people. People grow up here and then they move to Johannesburg or to wherever, Cape Town, and these kind of things. And you will see all the facts and the figures in that department. And we were, of course, helped in this context by Urban Econ, a service provider that provided us with some very good insight into the document, I think in year 2 and 3 of the project. Other key indicators that I think needs mentioning is that the province's fertility rate has declined. Life expectancy has improved. In other words, we're getting older. The province has a high migration rate, people moving. The province has a low population density. We're a fairly big piece of land, and we have just over 3 million towards 4 million people living there. So it's vast open areas of rural land. The Human Development Index is increasing. It's an indicator of how people are faring. And people living in poverty has increased from 2012 to 2022. And then about 43% of individuals above the age of 20 has completed secondary schooling. It's a very important issue later on when you get to skills and skills development to take note of those kind of things. Also from Chapter 2, what we have said is the summary, due to the low level of people with matric or post-matric qualifications, it is unlikely that the province could build a robust, capable state and a vibrant economy relying primarily on skills within the province. So we must do something about skilling and schooling our own people. Migration to the urban centers, especially like, for instance, Rustenburg, but it's also in Gauteng, is probably the biggest issue that we are having. Looking at national figures, I don't think it's in the text, but I can give it to you because we looked at it recently. Urbanization is now approaching 70%. So 70% of South Africans of all races are living in towns, cities, and metros. 30% are still in the rural areas. And we caught in that urbanization process. And that brings us very close to where the global trends are going for urbanization. That roughly about 70% of people have moved into cities and towns, and the rest rely on the rural areas. And the question is, what are we going to do to keep the rural areas active? That is a very, very important question that the province must ask itself, and I think the Premier gave some answers to that when he spoke about agriculture and what the initiatives are in agriculture. For instance, goats. And I must congratulate him on the goat story, because in climate change, we as a province are going to experience climate change earlier than we think. Some areas of this province will become wetter, some areas will become drier, and we must provide the necessary skills and information to farmers, emerging farmers, and people in rural areas about what kind of skills, what must we do to mitigate climate change. For instance, we are not in the bad position that the Western Cape is. In the Western Cape, the rains are still coming exactly like they're coming, but they're now falling on the sea and not on land. And therefore, their dams at this stage are already getting emptier and emptier. What you can see in this graph, you'll see the graph has a few blocks. It has a cyclic kind of pattern, and then it has got a straight red line. Now, you can see that the economy the GDP, the economy is increasing a little bit. You can see that little red line is crossing the other red line. But the rate of growth is not sufficient to cover the rate of population growth. In other words, this province needs growth to get to a level where we can deal with the demands of the people in this province. And this is another indicator of economic employment. Now, for those of you working in this field, there is a new project that emerged over the last 2 years since we finished our project. SARS and the HSRC came together and they said, let's work out a pie graph, a spatial graph for every town and city in South Africa. You can type into that project, let's say, Mahikeng or Ventersdorp or Potchefstroom, whatever you want to put in there. And it will give you a pie graph of exactly what's going on in that town in terms of legal economic activity. In other words, tax were paid somewhere along the line, whether it's value-added tax or GST or whatever, and so on. And there you can clearly see in towns the size of agriculture in a town, the size of government grants in that town, the size of manufacturing, and so on. So it's a wonderful instrument, only arrived once we finished this document, but something that can be used in future. Still on the economy, some of the important economic figures that we see here in the province, the size of agriculture. Just take for instance 2021 figures. Agriculture makes up 5.8% of our economy, but it contributes 8.2% of jobs. Mining contributes almost 30% of the economy, but it contributes 14.7% of jobs. Manufacturing, 10%, but it provides only 4% of jobs. So you must clearly look at the size of a specific sector in your economy and what contribution it makes to jobs and job growth. And I think agriculture in this country is totally underexploited. There can be far more jobs created in agriculture in the Northwest Province. And the last part of Chapter 3 was proposed interventions, and we indicated that there are basically 4 growth areas in this province. And I was glad to hear in the Premier's speech that each of them were specifically indicated in his plan forward. The one, of course, is agriculture. It's if you travel like I did from Potchefstroom to Mahikeng, you can see the activity of agriculture. You can see the silos. You can see the cattle. You can see this is rural South Africa with a strong agriculture. Then, of course, construction in different parts of the province. Mining, especially Rustenburg and a few other areas. Tourism. We took a severe knock during COVID, but it's picking up from there. And I think tourism is an underutilized capacity in this province. It can be far stronger. But I'll show later on what are the factors that's inhibiting it. And then, of course, the promotion of SMMEs and entrepreneurial activity is incredibly important. With the youth employment and unemployment like we see, that is a very important area that we must take note of. The fourth chapter was the socio-economic infrastructure. And there we looked at the challenge, the lack of maintenance, the amount of roads. And here I already heard that roads, waterworks, and electricity are getting the attention. I'm glad to hear that the project in Matlosana is getting off the ground. This is one of the black diamonds in this province. The amount of electricity infrastructure in the Matlosana area, Orkney, Klerksdorp, Stilfontein, all those mining areas. Some of those mines aren't working, but the infrastructure is still there. And that is the big challenge that Eskom has. You can build a solar farm, but there's no linkages, there's no lines, there's no place where you can hook onto the system. Well, we've got it in Matlosana, and I'm very glad to hear that project is going. Integrated and inclusive rural economy, that's where we focused in our PGDS on a rural economy. The challenges, of course, poor development and maintenance of infrastructure, lack of land tenure security and land reform, lack of financial support for commercial, small-scale farming, cooperatives, and communal farmers. I must mention here, with a little tear in my eye, the premier that instituted the PGDS was Premier Mape. And he called me, and after we went together to the farming exhibition at Bothaville, and a day or 2 days after that, he called me and he said to me, "Take me to Taung. I want to see what's going on there as part of your research." He went to hospital, and after that, of course, he retired, a very sick man. So we never went to Taung to look at the cotton and all these kind of things. But these are the issues that we looked at. And the interventions that we're proposing, some of it the Premier already mentioned, improving infrastructure to accelerate services, review supporting land reform, forging partnerships with the traditional authorities, expedite land alienation processes, and implement spatial planning in the rural areas, incorporating the village precinct concept. Human settlements, housing. There's a growing demand for diversified housing, we found. Rising construction costs require a new approach. Alternative types of housing, prefabricated, sandwich parcels, precast, container, whatever. There's a lot of good ideas going around which one should look at. In Chapter 7, the improving education, training, and innovation and skills development. And here the issue was that, are we providing the youth with the right skills? Are they employable once they're through schools? And I think the education department is looking at that. The university is looking at that. And we must look at our education system, provincially and otherwise, whether we provide the programs that can take these youth into the economy sooner for them to make a contribution. Environmental sustainability was all about climate change. I'm glad the Premier also mentioned the issue of game reserves and what they're doing, because that's what we were looked at in this area. There's inadequate structures in this province, we found, in terms of the National Climate Change Bill, inadequate assessment of climate. We are very concerned about climate change, and an inadequate strategy on ecological infrastructure. That is water security, cleaning of rivers and consumption, mining and farming purposes. I just visited yesterday with the Deputy Minister of water affairs, where at 2 places in JB Marks, sewage is flowing right into the Mooi River. Downstream on the Mooi River, and this is what we try to describe here, cattle are drinking the water. A little bit lower, the guys are putting their sprinklers and their water on the plants out of that river. The toxicity of sewage is such, one of the reasons why we've got sewage plants is to get rid of the heavy metals that sits in sewage. But if you put sewage in the water, that heavy metals is in suspension, and the plants take it up and we eat it again. So it's a very, very bad cycle. But luckily, there are several projects on water, and I'm glad province is looking at that, and local governments must. Social protection was chapter 9. It's about food insecurity, infrastructure challenges, and the limited capacity in tackling acts of gender-based violence. We looked at that also comprehensively. And the interventions that we proposed were a social floor that can be progressively realized through social wage approach, ensure developmental social welfare services, and ensure and promote private sector participation. Get the capacity that is out there and join forces. That's the message here. Improving health. I'm so glad to see Tupi Mokgatla here. You know, when one of your students are telling you that he's considering pension, then you must know you're very old. So that's the position I find myself in vis-a-vis Mr. Mokgatla. There's a lot of things that can happen in health that we're looking. And we could not, in our project, put in the emergence of the medical school at the Northwest University, but it should be in this document because province is a key part of that project. We at the university, we couldn't get, I was on that project, we couldn't get a medical school off the ground if it was not for the assistance of province. You're a key part of it, and I'm so glad to say that the decision to name it the Desmond Tutu Medical School that will be situated primarily in Matlosana gives also a growth potential to Matlosana in that sense. I'm actually very happy to have been part of that project. Chapter 11 is about building safer communities. And here, the question that confronted us was the political will to combat corruption. Now, over the last week or two, we've seen several developments nationally, and I think it also projects a political will to deal with some of these issues. We said in our document, political leaders need to demonstrate a visible commitment to anti-corruption, and I think we are starting to see that happening. So that to me is a very good show, and I think in this province we've seen similar actions, and I want to congratulate the province. Building a capable and developmental state. Now this is the part where A.B. Tlaletsi actually came into his own, but he said to me, I can deal with this. You'll answer the questions. I can just propose to you that the public service must be professionalized and government department must be insulated from politics or political parties. Now, since I made a few moves in my own personal life, I may now feel different about this sentence that I wrote here. Maybe I should soften it. But in any case, pre-entry exams, compulsory integrity tests, introduce rotation of senior management cohort on a regular basis, and foster a re-engineered and sustainable sound relationship between public and private sectors. And this is something where the university can also play a major role in the province. The transformation question. How do we build a province? And what I'm now saying, I'm saying as a born and bred Northwester. I've been living in the Northwest for the last 42 years, so I regard myself as a Northwester. But if I look at other provinces, if I look at the Free State, there is a there's a Free State culture. If I look at Limpopo, where I was born, with Judges Kloof, Levels Kloof, when I get to Limpopo, there's a Limpopo culture. I miss the Northwest culture. I once said, tongue-in-cheek, the only thing Northwest about Northwest is that we are northwest of the Free State. But I think we must work on a platinum culture or something of that nature. This is what we have thought about here. And then, of course, chapter 14 was implementation, communication, monitoring, and evaluation. The Premier indicated that the PGDS will be monitored through the Office of the Premier. The Office of the Premier will play a very important role in terms of getting the different departments to work together and to implement. But if I can sum up all my chapters, and this is a slide that I dedicate to Premier Mape. He came to my house one day while we was busy, and he sat for tea, and he said to me, "Can you sum up these 150 pages in one page?" I said, "Sir, that's difficult." He said, "No, but do that for me." And I sat with him and I said, "You know what, if we look at the at what's happening in this province, and there you can see the province on the map, and we look at the socio-economic sectors in the Northwest Province, 5 issues stood out. And that is, create employment and growth. Current levels of unemployment is unsustainable, especially youth unemployment. It's just a fact, it's a given. 2, stabilize local governments in terms of governance, financial sustainability, service delivery, and the impact of corruption. 3, stabilize and support the provision of services in local and district municipalities, especially water, sanitation, and the provision of electricity. And 4, a comprehensive political project is critically needed for infrastructure development, especially roads. The Premier mentioned that in his speech. I'm so glad to hear that. The most important economic sectors, mining, manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism, are all depending on this intervention. The intervention of infrastructure, electricity, water, and services. And those services are rendered by local governments. On my way here, I drove through Dietsebotla, Lichtenburg. And in our project, we discovered 3 things about Lichtenburg. It is the area in the country, it's from Kulini on the south through Lichtenburg to the north. It's the area in the country with the highest yield of maize per hectare in the country. And that includes Winterton and those places where you get 20 tons of maize per hectare. Secondly, the highest yield of cattle per hectare in the country. And thirdly, they've got 5 or 7 cement factories. I've stopped counting the amount of cement factories, but the town isn't working. We must ask ourselves, what is going on? Why? The town should be a growth town compared to Rustenburg or Matlosana or JB Marks, but it is not happening. Those are the critical questions. And then lastly, a renewed focus on crime in the province, especially corruption, stock theft, because we're rural, and the actions of the Zamas in the mining environment. I see the military is now being mobilized for this. The last part, and then I'm finished. How do we see the implementation of the PGDS? You have heard that. We have looked at several things. The address of the PGDS is in the Premier's office, and the Premier's office has done some very important work, establishing an agricultural working group, a tourism working group, and you can see the institutions that lead in those working groups. And this industrialization, human settlements, education, and the health working group. That is a very good development, so that at least there's direction in terms of how to implement the strategy. The role of the Premier and the Premier's office, will be responsible for constituting the working groups. The Office of the Premier has been mandated through intergovernmental government prescripts to the states oversee, guide, advise, coordinate the activities of all departments, municipalities and state-owned enterprises. So it's the right address to focus the attention. And then if you can't measure, you can't determine where you're going. So an indicator matrix to see where we are going from time to time is a very important issue. Abit Laletsi also worked on that in the document. And then, of course, the Premier's office again will coordinate that. And then in conclusion, I think 3 points are important. One, Provincial Growth and Development Strategy serves as a blueprint to guide the development and the trajectory of the province. But like I said in my introduction, it must be a living document and it must be adjusted from time to time. I think on an annual basis, it should go through a small adjustment for economic figures, facts, and so on. Through this strategy, all sectors of the community will be mobilized to work together in dealing with the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And 2 areas I mentioned early on in my introduction that I would like to see more integrated into this project is local governments per se and traditional leadership. I think their voices in the PGDS is not clear enough. That's my personal view as part of the authoring team. And then the document is not a static document. It will be reviewed as and when it is necessary. And I think that is annually when it's necessary to align with current challenges. And Premier, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for enduring me and thank you for listening to this launch of a very important document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ntate Tlaletsi, for a detailed presentation. I think that slide that shows 5 points, it's that if we fail in everything else, in those 5, we must never fail. I think that's the key message, but we must also take your personal views, because I think you were reading my mind. In the different working streams, you can have those working streams without having a service delivery component, which includes also municipalities. It's important that must be taken into account because we can do a whole host of things as a province. And whatever we do, it must happen at the local government or municipal level. But it's also important to address also the weaknesses that exist at that level of local government. Thank you very much. I think we are now going to take inputs before we take the media. I'm going to invite any one of you, HODs, CEOs, the advisory panel, and yourself as different officials who were part of the team. If anyone wants to make an input, this is your opportunity. Or Majoro, Mkhuduthamaga. You are all covered. You were consulted broadly. You've made an input. Acting. You are covered. Huh? There's a hand here. Thank you. You can introduce yourself as you also speak, and please stand up so that they can see you and recognize you. Acting of Mahikeng.
Dumela Mogejo. Ke nna Eric Kesa. I'm the currently acting municipal manager of Mahikeng local municipality. I must just commend the work that is done. It's an excellent job. However, My belief is that we must learn to be frank with each other. We speak about youth unemployment sitting at around, now it's sitting at around 45% in the country. When you do black youth unemployment, the state says it doesn't exist. And we have to be very conscious of that. It's not youth unemployment. We have to look at the demographic that is suffering the most. The second part of it is that as we do the strategic documentations, we have to look into issues like, for example, how rich are we as a country when we look into renewable energy? Mahikeng, for example, it's a dry place with a lot of sun. But what we hear most of the time is that if you put on your solar panels, you have to register. That's a deterring factor. We're not speaking about it like the same way as it is spoken in the Western Cape, where if you have enough electricity, you can feed it back into the grid, which is now an encouraging statement and actually saying to the people that they can do what we can do. And the last part of it that I just wanted to also talk about is, I remember Steve Biko used to say half a loaf of bread. People were saying to Steve Biko that half a loaf of bread is better than nothing. And he said, but half a gram of poison is as killing as the whole gram. The reason why we see that Lichtenberg is growing mines, a huge plateau of agriculture, but the town is not growing, is because we are always told that we cannot challenge the investors. They will go. So we settle for half a loaf of bread, which is the same as half a gram of poison, and is killing that town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've noted 3 of your points. The other one, it's a task that maybe Statistics South Africa must help us to then look at the demographics of those that are unemployed, both the expanded unemployment, and to say to what extent is it affecting the vulnerable groups. And I think the other points, it's food for thought for all of us. Is there anyone who wants to say something again? Thank you very much. I'm now opening to the media. I'm going to request you to, as you raise your hand and we give you the mic, you introduce yourself and the media house that you are presenting. Thereafter, if there's any question from the social media, we'll invite the team to also provide those questions. What we will do in terms of the response, we will take first from the house, because you were consulted, and this document, it's ours. We are here to launch the work that we have been doing for the past 2 years. So we will also be given an opportunity to provide detail, especially in sectors that you are relevant. Can I take hands? Mafoko a kgosi ya mantle otlhe. I see a hand ko morago kwa. Is there any other hand? Second one. Thank you very much. We have 2 hands.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Sintleng Lihihi from SABC News. I'm glad that the Prof mentioned the disparity with the realities in Ditsobotla. It seems that our plans are lacking in how we are going to deal with the disjuncture between the economic progress made by industry and the lack thereof of government in ensuring that services are provided to attract even further investors. I'm also enlightened by what was said by the acting MM. I'd like further elaboration on what he means by investors are then directing how far government intervenes. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2. Then we'll take the 2 questions.
Thank you. I'm Eugene Jason from Northwest on Sunday. I do have 2 questions. The first one is directed to the Premier. I think mining industry it's more contributing to the economy of the country, but I didn't hear you about how much will be invested, especially that those people of Zamazamas, how we are going to deal with it. And the legislative part of it, do the provincial government play any particular role, or is it the competence of the national government to license for the new projects in the mining industry? Now, I hear the professor speaking about the youth unemployment. I've been a youth, and that was the problem since, and I think even too, the youth unemployment, it has been a problem. Now, I realize, I think that's my particular opinion, that now you find the academics, they are faster to produce papers. And now, I think, isn't this thing indicating that it's a failure to deal with the problem of the youth unemployment? Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with you, Acting MM, to elaborate and provide more flesh on your last statement. And then I will give the advisory experts and then give to the Premier.
Thank you, Motsamaisa Tiro. Basically what I'm saying is that when there is an invisible hand, if you look at, for example, we do agree that there's where government is lacking, but what I was trying to say is that that invisible hand shows that we are not able to intervene as we should. Because if you see like 7 mines, Sepaku, PPC, all those mines that are there, and you look at what happened, for example, with the removal of clover, where did they go? Could they not come to us on time to talk to us like civilized people? And I particularly, I'm not speaking for government here, I don't buy the excuse that it's because of poor road maintenance and stuff. Because government sector and private sector must get into what we call private-public partnerships, where these things can be resolved. You can actually go to a municipality and speak about a particular road, and you make right that road as a business, and then we then waive or we give you a tax period, what we call it, where you won't have to pay rates and taxes for a certain period because you've built a beautiful road there. So there are many things that could have been done, but what you see is that private sector does not want us to intervene, because if we intervene, we are told that we are chasing away the investors. That's all I was saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Tate Tlaletsin, Tate Venter, on your side.
Yeah, I've got one or two comments that I think it's important. The one is, and I want to respond to the MM's reference to clover specifically. If you in the milk industry and suddenly you don't have water or the electricity goes out for 2 or 3 days, everything that you're busy making, let's say you're making cheese, everything is going rotten. So you've got a problem there, and I think a lot of the industries, especially in the Ditsobotla area, are contributing. And there is currently an intervention, so let's see if it works. The issue that I'm more concerned about was the first question, the one on youth unemployment. And I think we can do more in terms of skilling people. Let me give you an example. If you're in Germany in a school, at the level, now I'm still old age, I talk about standard 6, that must be grade 8. If you're in grade 8, you must make a choice in the German school system. Either you go technical, or you go academic, or you go skill. When you finish school, you can weld, you can build, you can do something. When we finish our children, once they pass grade 12, maybe they can do a few things, but they can't weld. Nobody taught them to weld. They've got there's very little employable skills, and that's where the TVET colleges is supposed to come on. And I think there is a huge challenge for the province, but for the country also, to get people employable, to give them skills that if they can't provide those skills to work somewhere, they can start their own business, and they can start doing their own things. And there, I think, is a major role and a rethink. I love to say that if you've got a crisis, utilize the crisis, because crises are incredibly learning environments. For instance, foot and mouth. What are we learning now? We are learning that if you take a farmer, a commercial farmer, and you get his cattle vaccinated, that farmer will tell you, I will help my communal farmers next to me because their cattle must also be healthy, otherwise my cattle get ill. So immediately you see a new cooperation going on all over the place. That is the value of something like that. And I think we're entering a youth unemployment crisis, and we must provide and take out of that crisis and see if we can convert it into something good, because we cannot continue exporting our children. I've got 4. They all left Northwest. It's only me and my wife remaining in the province. They go to Joburg, Cape Town, all over the place. One even went to Vicksburg. I said, no, you can come back. Potch must be better than Vicksburg. But she says, no, Dad, the needs here in Vicksburg is far greater than in Potch. I'm just staying here. Thanks for that. And thanks, everybody, for attending, and especially Premier for the nice words that you've said about the project. And AB is next to me at Laletsi. Without him, my project would not have worked. Thank you very much.
Let's you are covered. Thank you very much. DG, do you have anything on your side? Premier?
No, thank you very much, MEC Mosenogi. I think there was a question around mining. Mining is a national competence in as far as responsibility is concerned. It's not a provincial competence. The national department is the regulator and is also the issuing department in as far as licenses are concerned, whether it's prospecting or whatever. They are the ones who are responsible. But ordinarily, in any event, if you have people who are coming to mine in an area, there is always an interactive collaboration with the municipality, with the traditional authority, and to a large extent with the community, because you'll also have traditional council, the ward committees, and the councillors, and so on. They participate. And in those interactions, subsequent to that, there is approval of what we call SLPs and so on. So they play a particular role as a community. But to a large extent, when we come in as a provincial government, we are more of a facilitator or persuader, because we come in where we realize that at times there's not even compliance in as far as those SLPs are concerned. But we feel strongly that the traditional authority, municipalities, and the community itself, they are subjecting themselves to an arrangement which ordinarily they should be in control of, because that is their land, there are agreements that have been reached which are supposed to be done. But my focus now of late has been, it can't just be SLPs. The community must be engaged economically. Because if you look at our SLPs, at times these SLPs are, building of creches, building of a hall for the community. When personally I'm looking at more impactful projects which will make our people to be economically active participants in that engagement. from the economies. Because at times you realize that in the value chain of the mining in that community doesn't find expression. Everything comes from Johannesburg, it comes from outside the province, but people in that mining community are not involved in the value chain economy of that mine. And it's something that I've been saying and fighting to the mining community to say, look, we should also be looking at post-mining economy. You need to diversify, taking advantage of an existence of a mine, and diversify to the extent that when that mine is not sustainable, after 40, 50, 60 years, it can't be just a distressed mining town or village. What economy post the mining will exist once you have diversified? So, because at some point those minerals will not be there, when after 100 years or 200 years or so on. So it's something that we have been looking for. But we have started a debate as provinces, especially Northwest Limpopo and Mpumalanga, to say this responsibility mining, it can't just be left to national. And our view in different forums is that it must be a shared service, because the law allows shared services between provinces and national. Because if this is the center of the economy of the province and we don't have a role that we are playing, we feel marginalized, and as a result, we don't even have a meaningful role that we are playing. And we have now started to make that argument. And maybe probably when we are not here anymore, there will be those who are coming after us, and they must pursue that argument that this must be a shared service. But that's how I think thus far we can respond to your question in as far as mining is concerned. Thank you very much, Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Dona Kholo. Is there any other question? I'm taking the last round, so there will not be any second thought after this. I'm only noticing one hand. It's one hand. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions on your side? Thank you very much. So it's only one question. Raitso?
Good day. My name is Bobby Sol. I'm from the famous Mahikeng Mail. Premier, I heard you speaking about the international airport of Pilanesberg and the international airport of Dick Muntsiwa. I would like to know who is fooling who, do we have two international airports in the province? And I'd like also to know what actually is the future of the international airport of Mabato, because fortunately, Jose Muntsiwa is here. He should have been told about the developments around the Dick Muntsiwa airport. For years and years, about 25 years, even more than that, we had previous ministers and government officials talking about the return of the international license of the Muntsiwa, the then Muntsiwa or Mabato airport. I would like to know what actually are the developments around the Dick Muntsiwa airport. Thank you.
Thank you. There are two more questions from social media.
All right, the one question is from King Kenneth Mokaudi. He says he acknowledges the Premier's efforts in developing the PGDS. However, he's concerned that every year they hear about this, and yet there seems to be no effective monitoring and evaluation of previous strategies. And he is further calling for inclusivity of the people in the province. And then the next one is from Loselo Sehwe. is equally calling for inclusivity of people. He says the PGDS are always well-intentioned, however, lacking in these strategies is a systematic evaluation of past strategies as critical evidence and lessons to improve new strategies and ensure that they deliver results. Additionally, strategies with lack of clear, robust, and systematic monitoring and accountability system often fail to deliver, not because the strategies are bad, but because, among others, they lack scientific monitoring tools and systems to alert policymakers about resources, limitations, misallocations, capabilities, and capacity challenges. The Office of the Premier should build internal capabilities for coordination, monitoring, evaluation, and capabilities to hold delivery agents accountable.
Thank you very much. And Tate Motlotlegi Moroeng. Oh, Ntate Tlaletsi. Can you borrow Ntate Tlaletsi the mic? Maybe on some of the second questions that were asked.
Thanks, Premier, MECs and HODs, mayors. I think the questions, the concerns that have been raised are very valid, and those are the key issues that we raised as we review the PGDS. And Prof. Venter has also alluded to the fact that we would have done the review better if the consultation, the inclusivity, we had gone beyond what we have reached out to. So this is one area that will be attended to more aggressively or to a higher degree in the future review processes. The monitoring and evaluation also is one issue that we emphasized, and it has been emphasized from year to year, it's true. But now this time around, I think there are practical activities that are captured in the PGDS that actually hold certain departments as well as Office of the Premier accountable to the implementation of the monitoring and evaluation model. So I think the right evaluation will then be when the province review this PGDS that is being launched now, just to check as to whether what we promised or what the government promised was indeed implemented. Thanks, MEC.
No, thank you very much, Program Director, on the questions that are posed with regards to the airport. I think at first, members of the media, we need to applaud the effort in the very short space of time that has been made by the Premier to secure the assistance of the infrastructure South Africa, something that we have been longing for in as far as the two airports is concerned, in particular the Pietermaritzburg that has been that we have managed to secure their assistance in as far as that is concerned. The processes are underway for the technical committee to make sure that the strategy and the assistance is being taken into effect in as far as the Pietermaritzburg airport is concerned, which brings me to the main question of the day with regards to the license. When you look at the two airports, the honest reality was that when you look at the quick wins in as far as the two airports is concerned, Pietermaritzburg rather was strategically situated can be able to assist us in as far as passenger airlifting is concerned, and with its tourism sector that is found surrounding the airport, that is why we felt that there's a need for us to can be able to focus there with the economic activities that are happening in the area. Because one thing about the airport, you'd recall, it does not exist in silos. Airport, where it is situated, there must be a flowing economic activities that helps it to grow and become effective. Hence, Pilanesberg was identified as a strategic quick win at the time. Mahikeng, like the Premier has indicated in his address and in many addresses that he has been making, we have identified it as cargo, primarily because we are situated strategically to other SADC countries, and also to make sure that we take off the load on our roads that are damaging our roads in as far as the loads on our trucks and all that. But with that being said, the cargo will go a long way, and it will make sure that it drives the spin-offs around the city. Like many speakers have been indicating, the economic activities in Mahikeng, they are the ones that compelled us to take the cargo route, because the passenger airlifting in previous instances, we have resorted to that avenue, but the honest reality is that we realize that it is not effective. If there's anything, it is more costly to government. But the idea, it has not been taken out of the table altogether with the special economic zone that the Department of DDEC is looking at, including other activities in the area. The idea will be brought back to the table for us to continue with what many of our citizens in the province, they are very clear on, including the portfolio committee, to say that people still need this airport like in other provinces for passenger airlifting. But when the idea is not feasible, you cannot as government want to proceed with something that will not be able to give you the result that you intend to get at the end of the day. I'll give over to the Premier to make additions.
No, the MEC did give a response. An addition is that the SEZ that is also for Bojana, extending the license of the SEZ to also cover other areas beyond Bojanala. And in this instance, he made of cargo. It's something that you are looking at. We are looking also at aviation, training, parking, and now these are activities that will take place around the airport itself. But from a viable airport for airline, Pilanesberg became very attractive. It was a quick win, which we potential investors. But we have asked Infrastructure South Africa to say, you know, you can't just get an investor to come to Mahikeng Airport without putting a substantial business case from packaging to sustainability, risk management. So, and nobody will come here and put 20 or 2 or 3 billion. A compelling case. So you need a technical assessment that is done by competent people in the industry to say, this is a work, whether it could be bankable, it's something else. Who can come and put their money in the Mahikeng Airport. And so far, I think we are winning in that regard, because Infrastructure South Africa has put up a team which is going to help in the Pilanesberg and is going to help in the Mahikeng. Very soon, after we have put some work on the Pilanesberg, we'll be coming and announce what is that we are going to do with the Mahikeng one. But they are working on both of them. And the minister nationally committed to assist with Pilanesberg, but with the Mahikeng one, the provincial government will work in hand with the Infrastructure South Africa. But as it relates to the status of the international airport, we will pronounce after thorough assessment, because you'll recall that the license was voluntarily left out as a province before we had been downgraded. So we can reinstate it at any given moment once we can demonstrate that we need that status. I think it's something that is work in progress. Thank you very much.
Tonakolo, MEC, and everyone who has participated in the Q&A session. Ntate Venter, I'm going to request you to stand and approach the Premier as you do the official handover of the report. You can round, if you can round, please round. The panel of experts is officially handing over the report. And the report is also available online. It can be accessed, it has been officially launched. You can quote it in your thesis, in your research, in your academic work. You can criticize it, you can enhance it. You are encouraged to do so. So thank you very much, Prof. Venter and the team for the work. Let's give them a round of applause again. Now, pele ga ke bitsa mong wa nmu, ke kopa go itsisi gore dijo tsa rona tsa motshegare, they will be ready ka 12 o'clock. All of us are going to eat ko re restaurant area, and batlotlegi ba rona bone ba tla ya ko ba kopetsweng teng, ba itse ko ne ba le ko teng, ba tla ya ko teng. So re tlo go le re la mogetswe, everybody is catered for, so ke tlo go kopa re nne patient, so that re sa ifitlhelele gore re na le fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So all of you, please be patient. Before you go back, grab something to eat. I'm going to request Kgosi ya rona, kgotsa ke bitsa mma rona pele a ke sure go na le di protocol go nna ke ngwanyana lekeišene bathong. So o tla innela matsogo metsing Kgosi, ke itshware mokhuba, ke tlhole ke utlwa mme ba setsana dantši a re o itshwara khujwana. Or o itshwara khubo, something like that. But yona ewe mare ka tlhompho le boikokobetso bo bogolo Kgosi, segale ke sa gago, ke le tlhompile le nna ya ka le ntlhompile, ga re ka amogela Kgosi ge ka diatla.
Good morning, Madam Bagaich. Ka leina ke bidiwa Jeffrey Khotleng Montshiwa, ke kgosi ya Barolong Boratshedi, ga ke kgosi ya Mahikeng. Mahikeng ke nngwe ya di area tse ke di welang ka tlase ga me. Re leboga thata gore be re laleditswe go nna karolo ya go tla go thankgola semmuso Provincial Growth and Development Strategy. Ke emetse ntlo ya bokone bophirima ya dikgosi e eteletsweng pele ke Kgosi Maotwe. Mme molaetsa ke gore ra amogela sotlhe se puso e se dirang go tlhabolla mahatshe a rona re le dikgosi. Re leboga gore puso be lemogile gore ne ba sa re tsenya mo karolong e ntse go bua ka inclusivity, mme it has been noted ya ka Prof ntse a bua. Ke leboge ke leboge Majoro yo setseng a dulega Khumalo gore a bo a re amogetse ba gaetsho mo ngaka modiri molema e Mahikeng a wela mo go yone. Re ka ikgantsha re le barolong gore sale re nna progressive go tswa bogologolo. Ngwaga ngwe ole wa 1885 Kgosi Montshiwa o ne a neela the colonial British lehatshe gore ba le develop. Lehatshe leo ke le ne la the British called it Mahikeng le gompieno e leng Mahikeng ka 1885. Long back in 1977, Barolong gave their land to the then Boputatswana government to establish Mabatu. So, ga re bona gore mo gompienong go ka palang gore re palelwe ke go amogela the Provincial Growth and Development Strategy. The only problem we have nowadays ke go lola lehatshe le bo masepala. Next month, we are going to court. We are going to the land court, fighting Mahikeng local municipality over the ownership of JO301, which naturally is an ancestral land, Yabarlombora City. And this impediments, Hanedika Hedisiwa, that growth and development program, is successful. So, without much ado, we as Barolong, we accept the strategy, but we need to be included and also to be partners in the development of our people. I thank you.
Re setse re fane ka dikitsiso ga gona sepe se nka se buang gape mare ke tla kopa gore mongwe fela ya ka re butswe ka national anthem e le thapelo a rona mongwe fela moithaopi a re kwalle ka thapelo. Ntate Kunene ke utlwe go te moruti. Re nita baruti ba bantšha bathong go neng e le mo matlobe le bokgantsi boeng. Le nna ke ne re ke itopatopele ke a dlala fa ntate mmema matlobe fao. O go bogatsi le wena o ikenya o itse wena bogatsi o rata go kena gotle yang.
Ke a leboga Moradisi a re tswaleng matlho robeng ditlhogo re lebogeng. Ra re a leboga re lebogela letsatsi le le ntle le o re tshogofaditseng ka lona. Re lebogela nako e ntle e re nnileng le yona. Ditsamaiso tsa gompieno Morena di tsamaile sentle. Re lebogela tshireletso, re lebogela tshegofatso, re lebogela go nna teng ga gago, re lebogela ketopelo ya gago. Re santse re tla implementa le yona growth and development strategy ya rona ya bokone bophirima. Re solofetse mo go wena gore o re etelle pele, o re natlafatse, o re fe botlhale ka leina le le maatla la Jesu Kriste Morena. Amen.
Amen. Ntate le a re o itumetse tiro ya gone fela fa bagolo